Curious, how many of you grew up in the 1980s doing aerobic? If you're like me, you're having a bit of a flashback right now to leotards and leg warmers. Well, my guest today is Kirk Lawrence. Kirk had an extraordinary career that landed him right in the middle of the aerobics era. Kirk is also a recent best-selling author, and his book is Zero's Heroes, the incredible true story of what happens when you don't quit. Kirk had an extraordinary journey in his career, meeting many accomplished people, and he calls them his heroes. We're going to learn about some of those people. We're going to learn about what happened along the way. And so I invite you to sit back and listen in as Kirk Lawrence shares his story. Kirk, hello. It's so nice to have you on It Just Takes One. Welcome.
Oh, it is so great to be here with you, Kelly. We haven't done a lot of Zoom meetings. Usually just, the old-fashioned phone was comfortable for me, but this is better.
I agree. I was actually thinking the same thing when we got on, and I was able to see your San Francisco bridge in the background. And I thought, it's a perfect setting for you. We'll talk about that as we get into the conversation. But it was just so nice to be able to see you face to face.
Indeed it is, Kelly. This is really great. I wish Greg was with us, but I'm sure another time.
I agree. And he's with us in spirit. Greg's always with us in spirit, right? He's out doing his thing in the world, but he'll enjoy listening to this once we get it done as well. Kirk, it's been only a few months since we met. And right. We met because you wanted to write a book and put your life story into something. It actually took a few twists and turns before it became the book that it is today. We can share some of that. But before we get into talking about the book, let's just start with just a little introduction of how you and I actually met and how we are connected through our mutual friend and mentor, Todd Durkin.
Well, let's do that. Years back, I lived in 2015, I moved to San Diego from Indianapolis to San Diego. I had sold a health club. And for a little while, I just wanted to transfer with the company I worked for, FedEx, and live in San Diego. I had a beautiful place in Mission Valley. Really a great experience that I'd kind of longed for. And it was a break from the health club and the rigors of the fitness business and all. So I went to an idea convention and saw Peter and Kathy Davis, who are old, dear friends. I was a keynote in like the second or third idea convention. If you want to be dated, that's how you date yourself. Because we're talking 1985, 1986, 1988. And Idea was just a young budding company, but Peter and Kathy had the vision, Kelly, that they were going to take it around the world. And I just love that couple. I just love that couple dearly. And so when I saw them at the Idea Convention, I was like, hey, Peter, Kathy, what's shaking? Kathy, who's hot? And the first word that came out of her mouth was, Todd Durkin. You'll like him, Kirk. So I go see this young man, Todd Durkin, quite a speaker. But he was much more than that. And I was really taken aback by how much impact he had on me. And I didn't know it, but that was just the beginning. I lived in San Diego. And it was about a year later when I finally kind of got it together to go to his gym to say, I want to join a gym. And if there's any gym I'm going to, why not Fitness Quest 10? Mm-hmm. So, and I would just love to share with your people how wonderful that gym is. But in any case, so I go to the gym and join and meet Todd. And he's so affable and friendly. He asked me about my background, and I shared, Idea and Peter and Kathy and a little bit of what I had done in the business. I'd been in TV in the fitness business and done some personal training in the NFL, but years back when there were dinosaurs roaming the earth. But Todd kind of liked that, and listening to him speak at the various functions at Fitness Quest 10, the thing that he said was, if you think you have a life worth sharing, share it, basically. And I was stupefied. It got me thinking. And I was working part-time for FedEx. And I was also, truth be told, working in San Diego as an Uber driver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was a remarkable experience. I got to talk with people from around the world. And sometimes you'd have long drives and you'd share experiences. And these stories, a couple stories that I had about the NFL and morning stretch television, kind of life in the 80s, it really had an impact on people. And they would say things like, you should write a book, you should make a movie, and all that kind of stuff that perhaps we've all heard. But combine that with some of Todd's encouragement, it got me off the stump. I never started writing, though, until the beginning of the pandemic. So that's what got me off the stump.
Yeah. And I think the pandemic did actually give people an opportunity to slow down a little bit and maybe to start thinking about some of the dreams that they had. Like maybe a dream of sharing your story and being able to tell some of these things. Yeah. From the first time that I met you on the phone, call, right. Kirk, it was certainly apparent that you have a lifelong experience from the fitness industry. And you're kind of mentioned it just a little bit there. I'd love to go back and share with the listeners a little bit more about what was going on in the 80s. Because if we think about what fitness is now, it was not that back then. And you were really on the cutting edge in the beginning of what now would become, it has become more of a functional movement training world. It wasn't like that then. So share just a little bit. What was it like to begin training in any capacity back in the 1980s?
Gosh, what a great question. Okay, well, my background was heavy martial arts. I had done a Chinese Kempo style, which had really been enlightening to me. It had sort of changed my life and given me hope for the future. I started as a teenager at about 16, way back. That's early 70s. But so I had some of that experience both in martial arts and in a lot of dance and actor and ballet, meditation, yoga. I was an actor in training at the American Conservatory Theater. I gave a lousy demo that was laughable, but I gave a great Kempo demonstration. When they were about to send me out, they said, "Is there anything else that you do that is special or you have a passion for?" I said, "Oh, baby, I'd love to show you Chinese Kempo." So I did all this stuff, and they gave me a 50% scholarship. I couldn't even, it was $2,000 for a summer back in the 70s, 1978. I couldn't have enjoyed it. I couldn't have done it without that kind of luck financially. And so that's what I had going into the 80s, some martial arts and some movement experience, kind of an Eastern Western approach. And I met an athlete. I was coaching a ski team for free just to have the experience, Kelly, of coaching a team. I'd been asked, I was teaching a karate class in a racquetball court. And one of the students was the head coach of a water ski team. He asked me if I would condition the Marine World Africa USA skiers of the ski show. Some of them were competitive. Some of them were just great performers. And so I started doing this. It was really fun. I kind of had my Eastern days, my Western days for training, like Eastern style, like Wing Chun and this energy practice that you do, and yoga, meditating, one nostril breathing, stuff that was just like so weird back in the 80s. But that was the Eastern days. And then the Western days were Cam 2 training and Nautilus training and something more conventional for us, warm up, cool down, stretch out, that kind of thing. So that's what I was doing. And somebody was watching. One of the players on the 49ers had just finished their season and had just turned 30 the day before I met him. I didn't know that for 35 years. I only found that out recently. But he had just turned 30. His name was Charle Young. And he introduced himself and asked me if I would train him in these breathing exercises, these stretching exercises, and all the ab work and core work that we were doing. And I was excited. I just remember going home in a trance. I remember this guy looked like a freight train and he wants something that I know. it was a trip, to borrow a phrase from the 80s. It was trippy. And but fun. And we got started. The next week. We started working 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, about 6 a.m. every day. And he reported good results and reported those results to other players on the team and the head coach, Bill Walsh. And it started taking on a little bit of life of its own. And it was really exciting, Kelly, for me as a San Franciscan, as a kind of a kid with maybe a little bit of a tough past, a divorced family and all those things, some of the heartache that comes from divorce and separation, and seeing all that angst and all that fighting and all that hatred. This was a new world for me, and I just tried to make the most of it.
Yeah, really. It's one example of many very special moments that happened because you happened to be a person who was open to experience and was willing to just absorb everything that was coming your way. But you bring up Charlie, who is a person who has been a really important part of your life and was actually where we thought the book was going to go when we first started talking. We thought it was going to be just about Charlie, but then
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Really kind of a dude, sort of a dude to dude love story of the 80s and sports and all that, and just a little guy with another guy that was just so big and strong, but I could drive him and he'd let me drive him and work him hard and all these things. And it went so far beyond stretching as I watched him over the months, and then watched him with the other players practicing, and then watching in a mini camp. It was so dramatic. What a sport, obviously, that's someone like Todd Durkin has taken. And he's just taken to a level that is hard to comprehend. It's so remarkable in his success with athletes from many, many sports. But this was 41 years ago. And I've never heard of a personal trainer working with a football team in the early 80s. So maybe but I just felt lucky.
It really wasn't a thing then. It's so normal now. And they have multiple trainers and conditioners and all kinds of things now. But then, but also, Kirk, on top of that, not only that you were sort of cutting edge with training, but the way you were training, because you were blending this Eastern Western philosophy into your training. And share a little bit about how you did that with Charlie.
Well, I always felt there is a martial art called Wing Chun. It was developed by a woman named Yim Wing Chun, who felt that all the styles of karate or kung fu or whatever she saw hundreds of years ago looked too masculine. It was for men. She wanted a better way. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. Innovation way back when. So she developed a smoother, it looks at first glance like a smoother, softer style, but the person who made Wing Chun famous was Bruce Lee. He evolved this thing of Wing Chun into this Jeet Kune Do modern. It is the forerunner to the modern martial arts, a total martial arts system. And in any case, it was this belief in Wing Chun and the way that you use energy in Wing Chun. I thought, Charlie needs this. He's on the line. People are coming at him. They want to cut his legs. They want to knock him down. They want to ruin his day, right? So just by teaching Wing Chun, which is this two-person hand play, it's kind of your forearms are brains, and your forearms will tell you how to react, how to respond, to be defensive or offensive. Mm-hmm. And so we did this as part of our workout, and he liked it. Charlie liked it. He could see the practicality and functionality in football. And he was a tremendous tight end that year. And he was a tremendous blocking tight end for their running game as well. And these were things that he was giving me lots of feedback that he could do better this year. And I was extremely excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always
great. It makes me excited now, Kelly.
I know.
I was so excited when the season started. They lose their first game. They win their second game. They lose their third game. We're thinking, oh my gosh, Charlie would come over every Tuesday morning. During the season, we wouldn't train except for Tuesday mornings. And we do kind of a dynamic flexibility and stretching. We wouldn't do the sprints. We wouldn't do the mountain. That was off season only. But but the conversations were just fantastic. And to watch him, I wish if I only would have had the vision to tape those conversations or something, to have those as he grew as a man and a leader from the beginning of the season and before the beginning of the season, when I saw remarkable leadership skills from this person that I was training, Charle Young. I happened to watch him interact with so many other players. I was just taken aback at his remarkable leadership skills. And Charlie told Bill Walsh about me. I get a phone call from Bill Walsh. It was Charlie's leadership that helped me, especially at that stage in my life.
Well, you worked together. You actually had an opportunity to reconnect with Charlie recently. Share a little bit about what that was like.
Well, my wife and I flew down to Austin and got to see Charlie. Charlie, we were vaccinated. Charlie was not. He was not vaccinated, so we were, really careful and protective in our meeting. But I wanted to share with him that, lo and behold, after years and years, for Charlie and I, it had been 30 years since we had just fallen out of, with one move too many, we had fallen out of touch. I really just didn't have his stuff anymore. I would try to reach him through the Seattle Seahawks and just didn't have any luck. So, but we got lucky. Diana and I went down and saw him, and it was a great experience. I just love the man. And we'll see where this goes. I have dreams ahead for Zero's Heroes, and I think it has, possibilities to do some special things. I'd like to see it in some other platforms and medium. And if that's the case, I'd sure like to use Charlie and other players on the team for their support and all their input. This is like old-fashioned 49er talk.
Well, I'm a Bills fan, but I will always be happy to talk about the old-fashioned Bills as well. So
oh my God, the Bills! They're like they're one of the sexy teams in the league now.
I know.
You've got
coming back here, right? I know.
Oh, with Josh Allen. Oh my gosh, nightmares. I'm still a 49er fan. He gives me nightmares. He's so good.
I almost feel badly.
Don't.
But I will share. Let's talk about, because you brought up the book, and I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the book, Zero's Heroes. And I want to talk about the title, because we're talking about how you've, met Peter and Kathy Davis and Todd Durkin and Charle Young, and you've been in sort of the upper echelon of the fitness industry, but life didn't start that way for you. So share about the title, Zero's Heroes, and why that title?
Well, at certain points in my life, especially when I was young, I felt as valuable as just a speck, a zero. I felt like a zero. I wonder how many others listening have had that, where they just didn't feel their worth. And I used heroes to help me along each step of the way. First, it was my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my next door neighbor, Danny Svitanich. He loves sports. We just played sports. We just put on 1, 2, or 3 sweatshirts. It didn't matter. Daly City was really a cold, foggy place. We would go outside and play all day until you heard the bell, come in, get something to eat, split. It was just that kind of wonderful childhood. But my parents split up when I was about 9, and it just got really dark. It was just one of those divorces that got really mean-spirited. The kids were involved. The courts were involved. Judges were involved. Judges' chambers were involved. Things that a child, 8, 10, 12, 14, you really don't belong there. You really don't belong there. And you don't want to be there. I didn't. And often it would be almost with the prodding of one attorney from one side or the other. You try to make one parent look better than the other. And things like that are just really just not a healthy situation. So that's why I had a low self-worth. And my relationship with my father, who was my greatest hero and greatest mentor, went so downhill that I only saw in him his wanting to be violent, and my concern for that. My concern, because you can't win a fight with your father. At least that was my approach. And in fact, it led to the point where I ended up deciding to run away from home when I was 17, because it was either fight or flight. And it was that way all the time. And I chose flight instead of fight. We had already had blows and those things, but you know, where was it going to go? And so I wanted to go out on Halloween, take my girlfriend at that time out for Halloween. And he said no, that I had a 6 o'clock curfew, and I disobeyed him and didn't come home and ran away. Mm-hmm. I ran away. I used a friend to help me. And my friend Wally drove me down to Poplar Avenue in San Mateo, and I stuck my thumb out and left.
And then what happened?
Well, I made it about 60 miles the first day. I expected to go 300. In fact, I can't say I really had a plan. I didn't. I didn't have any plan. So late that night, I hadn't gotten far, and I decided I got to stop. I just can't stay out all night. It's not safe. So I got my last ride, and this guy picks me up and asked me how far, you know, where was I going? I mentioned I was going to Santa Barbara. I wanted to see my brother in Santa Barbara. And he said he was going about 10 miles down the road, but, you know, man, it's late. You need a place to stay, man, all that kind of thing. This is November 1st of 1973. And I thanked him, and I said, yes, I could use a place to stay. And it's still hard to think back on this, but anyway, he gave me this little room. I had this little room. It was clean and bare, but it had a bed, a pillow, and a blanket on it. It was really, and I went to sleep. I thanked him, locked the door, and went to sleep. And he said he was going to leave. He had to leave. So there was nobody in the house. And I just remember being very nervous, really scared. I was scared. And trying to breathe. I was trying to breathe to control myself. And I went to sleep. I fell asleep with my karate gi right next to me. And I had all my clothes on, my shoes and all stuff kept on. And he came about, maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. He knocked down the door. He was angry. Maybe he was drunk or on drugs. And he came right at me, and I crouched. When I heard the noise, I had time to crouch, kept my eyes open, and I hit him in his neck. I hit him. I struck him. I attacked him when he tried to attack me. I tried to defend myself, and that's what I did. And I got my stuff, and I ran. I just ran for a long time. Ran out of there, screaming. It was just kind of an out of control situation.
Yeah. You know, Kirk, you wrote about that in the book, but I'm really glad you just shared that now, because to hear you speak it is even more powerful than reading it.
It is.
Because you're reliving the emotion of it.
I do. Yeah. That's as tough as it got, but that's really tough. I've shared this story with many students. Later in my life, I had the good fortune to work for Arnold Schwarzenegger, wrote a national fitness program with my ex-wife, and it was called Raising Youth Fitness. And thanks to Arnold, allowed me to speak to hundreds of students all over the country, often on a daily basis. And I would bring up this story, and it got a tremendous reaction from people, because so many boys and girls, you know, have this type of experience. And I sure hope I could help them somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, even thinking back, because we're still talking 70s here, when hitchhiking was still a thing, you know, people don't do that now.
Oh.
We're appropriately afraid, I suppose. But back then,
right.
That's what, that's how you got from one place to another. You hitchhiked. So it isn't even that part that was the shocking piece. It's just that you don't expect to be in a situation like that, right? You're just trying to find your way.
I didn't. I don't know what I was thinking. If anybody would have provided any kind of discussion, or if I would have had that chance, I probably would have talked myself out of it. Mm-hmm. But I was determined, I think, to teach my father a lesson. That's mm-hmm. what it was. I was determined to, I was so frustrated and angry, Kelly. I wanted to bring him, this powerful person, to his knees in a way. Mm-hmm. I was just really hurt and angry.
Yeah, absolutely. And you act out in the only way you know how. Your goal, however, the little bit of a plan that you had was to get to your brothers. And I'd love to share just a little bit about your brother, Jim. Mm-hmm. So you ended up getting there, and share a little bit more of the story.
Oh, it was so great to see Jim and him drive up in Santa Barbara when I was finally able to call him and wait a little bit. And he comes over and picks me up, and I'm able to share my recent experiences and how harrowing I thought that was and how lucky I felt I was. And frankly, I was thankful that I knew any karate, just enough to survive that. And I never would have run away. Maybe I was too confident, Kelly. In any other situation, I might not have been as successful, and I just might have been a statistic. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I was really happy to see my brother. I just love that guy so much. He was a psychology major at UCSB. He lived about 2 blocks from the beach in Isla Vista, which is this really cool hippie town, because it was the 70s. And it was just a great experience. He was so helpful and an ultimate older brother. The police came once and went through the house, and my brother hid me, and he just protected me and sheltered me. And just a great guy. And later, after I came back, returned, graduated from high school, kind of got going again. I was 20. I was working for the Postal Service. I was working midnight to 8. This isn't even in the story. I thought it would bore people if I told them I worked midnight to 8 for years, between the ages of about 20 and 21. But my brother came over to see me. He asked to borrow my luggage. And so him and I, we just chatted it up for a half hour and shot the bull like we always do, caught up on news, weather, and sports. And then Jim was gone. He took my luggage. Hey, see you, bro. And he left. And the next day he went with my black belt buddy, Dennis Leung, and another Burlingame friend, Chris Taylor. And they went on a plane flight to Santa Barbara. And when they left the Santa Barbara Channel, they must have had a mechanical error or a pilot error, and they crashed and were killed. They crashed and were killed about 11 miles out in the Santa Barbara Channel. We did not find out exactly what had happened for about 16 months because a commercial fishing operation dredged up most of the plane, and they had the parts. So that's how we found out. And that day sucked too. Yeah. There's no other way to say it. That was really another low point.
Yeah. Yeah. Your relationship with Jim obviously was pivotal in your life. It was something that was a really important relationship, and to lose him at such an early age by such a tragedy certainly had an impact on your life. How do you think you absorbed that? How did you process that?
I'm sure I struggled for some time. He passed away in 76. We found out in 77 that it was for sure he was gone. So that was, I continued working at the Postal Service. I started getting, during the time that my brother was missing, my mom recommended, she saw me exhausted working graveyard at the Postal Service. And while most of my friends were in college, going for bigger and better things. So she recommended, why don't you try modeling, Kirk? You got a good smile, Kirk. Why don't you try modeling? Well, Mom, I'm only 5'8". Don't you have to be 6 feet tall? Nah, they'll always pick somebody short too. And based on that, heavyweight advice, I went to a Grimet agency in San Francisco, took modeling photos, paid to go to a little modeling class for a month and all that. And then you have a business card, a Z card of photos, and started getting chances to work and, getting no for this reason and that reason. Then you start getting some jobs, Kelly. You start getting some jobs and you start to feel like more than a zero. You start getting work. That was really a direct way to say, you're the right one for the job when they pick you instead of 20 other people. That's like, I don't know. Hey, wow, look, I can't believe I got this gig sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that was helpful. I needed it. It gave me confidence to leave the Postal Service with other friends of my brother's that I was still in touch with. Some of them were in the restaurant business. I started working as a waiter, worked as a waiter. It allowed me to train in boxing. I was a black belt in karate at that point. I was teaching and I was starting to personal train. In 1979, I got my first client. He was a neurosurgeon named Dr. Paul Pitlick. He's now, you can Google the dude. He's just an internationally known great guy, but I knew him when he was a young bachelor, trying to get in shape, and then him meeting a woman and then them romancing and then helping him. And then they finally got married. And that's when I got the boot because he let me train other people out of his garage. I didn't have a place to train anybody. I used his garage to train him. And then he let me train other people in his garage.
Wow. Amazing.
That's how
your life. I think that's part of the intrigue of your life, Kirk, is that these connections just kept happening, just out of the blue. Like suddenly this person was here, and then you could train people out of their garage. And then the next thing you know, you're asked to train this water ski team. And then Charle Young, well, these dots just kept connecting.
Just like you, Kelly, and I'm sure Greg and Todd and so many of our listeners, I was teaching a karate self-defense class in another racket club, just in the gym floor. And I had a kind of a little school going. And Paul, Dr. Pitlick, my first client, still love the guy. He just comes to me afterwards. He goes, I'm a neurosurgeon. I can't come to very many of these classes. Is there a way I could get this training? I'm a young guy. He was like in his late 20s. And he usually trained in his scrubs. And what I learned is he hired me for self-defense, but what he really wanted was conditioning. What he really liked and enjoyed, and what I found I loved more than teaching self-defense, Kelly, was all the conditioning. The preparation was so fun, and it basically, so what I taught him was circuits. It was a bunch of circuits. It was circuits of a little boxing and a little fitness. And a little boxing, we had mitts and a kicking shield and some, jump ropes and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Got started. That was fun.
One way to begin and could still use those today.
Yes, true.
You ended up with Charle for a while, but that was not the end of your journey. That was really just the beginning of your journey in terms of where your fitness took you. You mentioned earlier, just briefly, that you ended up on Morning Stretch on TV.
Oh, so yeah.
Those of us that were, anybody that was in the 80s, that was
somebody was probably changing your diapers, for crying out loud there. And other folks listening.
I remember it. Absolutely remember it. And, the advent really, Kirk, right, of having fitness on TV.
Right. Oh, my gosh. Absolutely true. Because the only person that had really done it successfully prior to the woman I met, Joni Greggins, had been Jack LaLanne. And even by that point in the early 80s, Jack, God love him, and thanks to Joni Greggins, I actually got to meet Jack LaLanne in the green room of the Today Show in New York City when Joni was doing a book tour in 1985, because Joni was on with Jack and another lady, forgive me, from another show that featured kind of younger gals and a lot of flying hair and stuff. We'd watch all the fitness shows because we were in the business. We were a network syndicated TV show. But can I just interject one thing that I think you'll get a kick out of?
Absolutely.
Okay. Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda is the woman, what was fitness like in the 80s? Well, it was kind of stodgy and old fashioned until Jane Fonda came along in 1981. And when she released a video, it changed everything. Not only primarily for women, but it was a bona fide sort of urban conditioning program that you could do, you know, inside in a new type of gym, whether it was a dance studio or whatever. All I knew was in 1981, I was listening to the same music at the 49er training headquarters as I was listening to Jane Fonda's workout. And I thought, well, you know, this is the bastion of the macho. And here we are in the dance set. And you know what? I don't know, man. I think I'm in the middle. I can do it all. I can do this stuff. I like the music. I like what they're doing in dance exercise. Kelly, you would have loved to see how good some of the instructors at the Jane Fonda workout. There was like a handful, not everybody, but there was a handful. These people were so good. They were so pumped and great instructors and teachers and so in shape and all that stuff, but good leaders as well. And so I got hired by Jane Fonda's, but I saw friends of mine. I would spar in some of the rooms and they did not like that. They did not like, and I was in karate. So we would do some sparring and it didn't work for me. They didn't really like that approach that I had. So, but I learned so much from them. It was such a great experience. Even got to meet Jane Fonda at that point, just as part of a master class. And, you know, thanks to Joni, got to meet her in a different way later. But that was fun. And that was kind of the new age, thanks to the Fonda workout and all that she brought in 82, 83. So when I met Joni, one of the first projects that she had me do after I met her on a July 4th workout at a holiday workout, like many of us have gone to, and just said, you know, I happened to see her. She came in late and was a very private person. And at the end of the workout, I was one of the teachers at this particular studio. And I just said, you know, congratulations, Joni, you know, great show, without really knowing much about the show, just little things about her. I'd watched her on another TV show in the Bay Area called People Are Talking. She had a regular thing every Monday. She was the fitness expert. So, and I saw that show more often because it was on later in the day and it was really popular. People Are Talking at that time. And anyway, so I got to meet Joni, and anyway, she said she knew who I was, is what tripped me out. It blew my mind. Mm-hmm. She knew who I was and was complimentary and asked if I could meet with her at the TV station. So I did that later that week. And that started a business relationship, and then later a relationship with Joni and the Morning Stretch TV show.
Yeah, so many great pieces to that. One thing I do want to ask about, though, is because you had the opportunity to meet Jack LaLanne in the green room.
Oh, yeah.
What's that moment like?
Oh, gosh, thank you. I got to meet Jack and Elaine. You know, not only Jack, little Jack, you know, he's as wide as he is tall. You know, he had the same suit. This is 1985, Kelly. I might just jump right out of my chair, but he's wearing the same uniform, you know, the unitard that he would wear on his TV show. And so it was just a great honor. I was starstruck to meet Jack LaLanne, what a living legend. And it was fun to watch him interact with Joni and shoot the bull and all of us talking in the green room. But then they were, you know who, Kathy Lee Gifford was the person who interviewed, because she was on, I think they were actually on ABC Good Morning America. They were on all that. But I think I saw Jack with Joni on Good Morning America, and Gifford was the hostess. Now, anyway, that was really fun to see. I just watched it on the other side of the camera. And Joni had quite a remarkable book tour. So there were many remarkable experiences and introductions all around the country. And her book was quite successful, you know, quite remarkable.
Well, I'm certainly always interested in hearing the connection with Jack LaLanne, and obviously know Elaine as well. But I also was excited the first time you told me that you had met Jane Fonda, because certainly she was the first for many of us into the realm of fitness, aerobics, even style of fitness, right? With the leggings and the leotards, and we all followed her.
Yeah, she was like an industry, just like Tiger Woods to golf. Jane Fonda to the fitness industry. Like I remember, okay, so I go to work on the Morning Stretch Show. The Morning Stretch Show is sponsored by Danskin. So I have to wear Danskin. I'm wearing dance leotards, dance socks. I'm like, okay. But behind the scenes, I'm like, Joni, wait a minute. There's Nike. I've been working for Nike by that point. I've been a Nike model for 2 years. What about Nike? What about Reebok? Reebok was making a huge splash with their Reebok, you know, that white, the first white edition of their little white aerobic shoe. That had come out, had been out about a year. They finally, like Reebok was major innovation. To make a long story short, I talked Joni into talking to Paul Fireman at Reebok, and we met at the Plaza Hotel in New York and changed sponsors from Danskin to Reebok because that was more athletic. That was more with it. That was more 80s. And that's where we were trying to, you know, take the show. We wanted to take the show forward into the future. And Reebok really had a handle on it at that point. Yeah. They were hot stuff in the aerobics world.
Struck actually, as you're mentioning that, and a couple of things that you've talked about already and that are in the book about your, one of your many skills is your foresight. You seem to have a way of seeing potential and then making the connections to make that happen. The story that you just shared being a great example of that. Another story that you share in the book was when you ended up going out to San Quentin, which I know was a vision that you had. Tell a little bit about that story.
Well, the show was going great. By that, I mean, it was growing in syndication. We would go to NAPTE, which was the National Association of Producers and Television Executives, go to that convention in the 80s. And you know who the star of the convention was, just between you and I, because we're like old friends now, Kelly, we've been talking for an hour, was Oprah Winfrey, was the star of the convention. She was a Chicago girl that was, I think, through King World, which I didn't know anything about at that point. But Oprah was the biggest thing at the convention. You know, we were all just looking at her like, oh my gosh, look what a person can do with the syndication. And because you sell your show, you sell it to different markets. In other words, ABC, NBC, CBS, different people could buy you in different cities. So they could slot you at 5:30 a.m. or 9:30 a.m., whatever was best for them. That has, a lot of that has changed in morning TV. But Joni, to give her credit, really just had a great vision with starting that show. And I was just lucky to come alongside and help her in the ways that I did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the opportunities that Joni got in the morning stretch, KPIX, CBS in San Francisco got was, we were there. We were happened to be at the station, and Joni gets a call from the California Department of Corrections, the California Department of Corrections, and takes the call, and it's actually somebody for the warden of San Quentin prison describing a situation that had occurred at the prison. A murder had taken place on the exercise yard, and the weapon had been a barbell. So in response, they stopped exercising. They stopped allowing the inmates into the prison yard. And it was down to 1 day a week, recreation, Saturday mornings only. And I know that because I asked when I finally got to meet the warden. Joni and I went in for the cook's tour with the warden and the warden's protective detail. We asked if we could create a show for them. Could you build a mock cell? We just do it in the cell. I mean, that's the only thing that applied in my mind. That was the only thing. How could I help somebody, an inmate in the cell, unless there was some way to use the bars and use the towels and use the stuff above you, below you, beside you, to create productive time, to create circuits and 2 exercises, 5, try to string 10 exercises together. Now you have something. So we went to San Quentin and took a tour with Joni, and I'll never forget that tour because, you see a pretty woman in a man's world when you go to San Quentin. We went to the Bay Block, which is max security, and it's death row. It's where death row is. And it's a cell that has literally about 300 or 400 people in 5 levels. And it looks out to the bay side. That's why it's called the Bay Block. So you can see these windows. And Kelly, it's really eerie. I'm the farthest thing from a prisoner. And it was really a trip to be with all these guards and a blonde woman, an attractive blonde woman who is thin and fit and all that stuff, not wearing suggestive clothing, but heck, anything in a dress is, these guys are caged animals. Right. And so we're watching these guys, and all they have is their little mirrors. They have a 4x4 little mirror that they watch. And you're watching all this through 5 rows up. And I'll never forget it, to make a long story short. And it was quiet for a while. It seemed like respectful, but then it was banshee wild and hooting and hollering. A lot of real gritty stuff said.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine. And you share in the book a little bit about how you were able to help them for a while, and then, didn't end up being a long-term thing, but you were able to be there for a little bit and offered some things.
Yeah.
There's an element in your book, and it's an important part of your book, but just as I'm listening to you talk today, it keeps coming back to me. And it's this element of don't quit. Every one of these stories required some gumption, whether it was because you were running away from home or stopping your right. post office job, which was secure, to try something new, being on TV, going to San Quentin, meeting stars and celebrities. Like, all of it takes somebody that's willing to try and willing to go for it. And so you share a poem in the book called Don't Quit.
Yeah. The poem is so much more than a poem. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, the road you trudge is all uphill. Your funds are low, your debts are high. You want to smile, but all you can do is sigh. When all that junk presses down on you a bit, rest if you must. Just don't quit. Life is so strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us will someday learn, and many a person turns about when they might have won had they just stuck it out. Often it's the struggler who gives up when they could have captured the victor's cup, but they learn too late, when the night comes down, how close they were to the golden crown. It's because success is just like failure, Kelly, just flipped inside out. It's the silver tint on the clouds that doubt. You never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when you're the hardest hit. What? It's when the things seem the worst to rest, but don't quit. That's what I believe. That is what I believe. And I will take that to my last breath.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. What have I learned in life? That's it. Yeah. That's all I know for sure. And I've learned a lot of things from mentors. Like, don't do it by yourself. I tried to do it by myself. And people like Charlie, people like Dennis Young in the martial arts, who passed away with my brother. I trained with him from white belt to black belt. 4 years. So I have all these resources to lean on, but I still was hit and miss until meeting Todd. Todd's really been helpful. He is a younger person, 20 years younger than me, but he has just developed his thinking, and his spiritual side is remarkable and humbling. And I'm nowhere near him, but he's got me sort of on the struggle, and I'm a better person because of it. Much better.
You and me both. For sure. Kirk, you wrote this book now, not 10 years ago, not 10 years from now. You wrote it now.
Right.
Why now?
Yeah, because I have support now. I have support. I'm in the right place. I always just wanted to sort of tell this story for the benefit of others, to serve others, if they feel they're a zero. But if they try really hard, excel at something that is they are passionate about, the people they might meet in their life that will grab them by their bootstraps and help lift them and carry them. That's my experience. That's why I feel so lucky to have met, thanks to Charlie. He tucks me under his wing and he says, it's okay. These guys are going to want to know you. So he walks me up to a group of professional football players, Joe Montana, Steve DeBerg, Randy Cross, other players on the team. And Charlie's comfortable with it. He says, this guy's special. You need what he knows, and let's get to it, and stuff like that. And I was just lucky, Kelly. I was just fortunate. I'd done some of the preparation, but I was literally picked up by my heroes.
What a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. What a beautiful sentiment.
That's why I hope to share it. That's why I have a passion to share this, and a dream, Kelly, that I believe someone will want to see this as a movie, as an ESPN type 60 for 60. It's a beautiful story of laughable losers to Super Bowl champions. And I got to watch this progression, and it was just a turn on as a fan, but also as a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It was cool.
Well, I can't wait to see where it goes.
We'll see.
I'm with you. I think there's, I hope somebody listening has an idea. And if so, please let us know. But we're going to let the book get out there and
indeed.
Do. Kirk, if somebody would like to get the book, where can they get it?
Well, the book's being sold on Amazon and Kindle, thanks to you, Kelly and Greg. Thank goodness to know you. And I have a website now. It's called ZeroOnceHeroForever.com. Again, ZeroOnceHeroForever.com. And that's a website that gives you a little background on the book and on me. And you can buy the book. And I hope to add elements and service. And as Todd would say, add value, by gosh. It just might take me a little while, but I will hope to do that.
Yeah. Keep building on it and let it grow. I'll make sure that gets into the show notes. Kirk, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you and getting to know you. I love your story. I love your passion. I love your energy. And I'm very happy to have had the opportunity to get this book together with you.
I hope we get to do it again, Kelly. I'm going to keep thinking of things in my life. If I can just scratch up another good story, I'd love to work with Scripter, because thanks to you and to Greg and the fact that Todd mentions you, and I listened to his podcast and learned about you and Greg in the podcast. Was I smart enough to write it down? No, I had to call Fitness at Quest 10, say, hi, Jen, at the front desk. Hey, can I get Kelly and Greg's, info and stuff? And that's how I finally got it together to reach out to you. And I'm really lucky.
Same here. Kirk, before we finish up, I always like to ask our guests what the term "it just takes one" means to them. As the title of the podcast, I think it's always a profound answer. So I ask you, what does that phrase mean to you?
It just takes one. It just takes one. I would say that is one choice. It just takes one. It does just take one to make a difference, to make an impact, to change someone's life. I'm hoping to be one through the service of this book to change one person's life. Thanks to my past, I've had the experience of changing more than one. But if through this book, if I can change one person's life, but Kelly, I'm getting discord with that too, because I've learned, I tried to sort of just take one, I can do it. If not now, when? If not you, who? I've screamed that in the mirror on various, performances or events or things, it's me, but it isn't. It's really, It's about the Lord and what he has done for all of us, and what we can just learn in our own way to shine that light and be a light instead of some sort of sucking engine. Instead, reflect that light and give it up, give it away, and feel good about it. That's my take. That's pretty odd, but it just takes one. I think it's better with your mentors and and other leaders to surround you, carry you sometimes.
And your heroes.
Gotta have them. Sure hope to have them.
Yeah. Kirk, thank you so much. Best of luck as you go forward. Please keep in touch, and thank you again.
Thanks a million, Kelly. Appreciate you. Thanks.